But take a look at this from The Guardian. FBI investigates blazes at Las Vegas Tesla showroom as potential terrorism. We have this story from The Verge. Multiple Tesla vehicles were set on fire in Las Vegas and Kansas City. Again, we have videos of both of these incidents. I want you to take a look at this. Several vehicles set on fire at Tesla in Las Vegas, police say. This video is absolutely insane. Crazy. For those that are just listening, there's no sound, but the vehicles are exploding. These are massive electric batteries. And this is Elon Musk tweets 100% violent terrorism.
It is. And I mean, this is the behavior of the left. They've been allowed to do this for the past, longer than the past 5 years, because it really did work up to the summer of love that we had, right? So there was Ferguson in 2013, I think is when
something like that.
I think it was like 2013. And then there were all the riots at schools when they were trying to shut down speakers and all the violence that was going on there. And then it kind of came to a crescendo in 2020. But the left has been violent and destroying property and firebombing things for the better part of the past 10 years.
Well, and I mean, go back to the 60s. They were doing it then too, sure. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you just go back to the 80s, and there was a bombing in Congress.
Like Weather Underground was like 60s.
Weather
70s.
Underground was in the 70s.
Yeah.
Between 71 and 72, they set off 2,500 bombs in the United States.
And then
they did a bunch of bombs throughout the rest of the 70s.
And didn't they blow up a brownstone? Greenwich Village.
They did kill someone. So I mean, this is not the idea that the left is passive or whatever is ridiculous. And it's something that the FBI, they should do everything they can to round these people up and put them in jail forever or for as long as possible.
So here's the video out of Kansas. And again, I guess there's no audio on this, or is that us? Okay, so I guess these videos don't have any sound. This is a guy who tweeted, just drove by local Kansas City Tesla dealership, barely caught footage of a girl in a black dress running away. Yo, this is getting scary. The Daily Beast, Elon Musk cries terrorism after Las Vegas Tesla car fires.
That is terrorism.
It is.
Blowing up car dealerships is a terrorist act.
And the White House said in a press briefing, I believe it was last week or the week prior, last week, like March 12th or something, that they were going to be investigating these as domestic terror incidents. And just like that article, the media started making fun of them and basically telling them not to believe their lying eyes. They pulled a fiery but mostly peaceful moment. We did a roundup of this at the Daily Caller. Vox characterized it as, quote, very spirited, peaceful demonstrations. And an MSNBC anchor said, just to be clear, you protest a private company, you are labeled by this administration a domestic terrorist. These aren't protests. These are acts of violence. I mean, it should be obvious, but these people are obsessed with running cover for the worst of society, whether it's Trende Aragua people being deported or people firebombing Tesla dealerships.
Let me play this clip from, this is Charlie Kirk.
What does Trump expect? Oh, I believe he expects violence. I believe he expects confrontation. I believe he's working toward a civil war.
That's Maxine Waters. Then we have this. This is data analyst Barbara Walter, hired by the CIA to predict the likelihood of civil wars developing in foreign countries. She believes the United States is potentially years away from another civil war. These are people on the left. So what I love about this is they're going to lie to you. And what you need to understand, we here at Timcast have been bringing up the possibility of civil war for some time. Many of you may not know that. And the response from liberals has always been to take clips and insult me and the show and say either we are trying to make it happen or we are crazy people for suggesting it could. At the same time, while they're putting out that outward propaganda to say, haha, look how stupid these people are, their experts and politicians behind the scenes have been warning them it is coming for some time. So I think the difficult question, or I should say the difficult scenario, the better way to put it, as we watch them engage in overt acts of terror against Elon Musk, and it is terror. They are attacking Tesla dealerships, not because they don't like his cars, not because he mistreats employees or any other accusation they may have come up with, but literally because he's working with the current administration. That is purely political. And while we are watching it happen with our own eyes, The media is coming out and saying it's a protest, it's a protest, it's a protest. They did this in 2020, peaceful protests, mostly peaceful protests. They're not going to stop lying. And so you need to understand something. The people who write those articles and go on the MSNBC shows, do you believe these people genuinely don't understand what they're doing? I do not believe for 2 seconds that you can watch a bunch of black-clad individuals firebomb buildings and then call that a peaceful protest knowingly. No one is that stupid. They're obfuscating and covering up for their revolutionaries, or whatever you would want to call them, for their terrorists. And they want to keep as many people in the dark as possible for as long as possible and shift the blame to those that are being attacked.
Well, yeah, and they don't want you to, like you were saying, they don't want you to think that it's terrorism. They go out of their way to make sure to use softer language. It's like the fiery but mostly peaceful protest that we saw in August 2020 in Kenosha, Wisconsin, which was absolutely insane. Yep. And you actually had the Trump Rapid Response Twitter account put out a tweet, just like a video from MSNBC. I want to say it was Abby Phillip. Is she CNN? Whatever. Anyway, I want to say it was Abby Phillip talking about how these were not terrorist attacks. They're, it's just a protest. And then they put the clip of fiery but mostly peaceful from that summer in 2020 on the end of it, just to make the point. And that is the point. That is what these pundits are doing. They're very clear that they want this to be called a protest. And I don't know how you guys deal with it at Daily Caller, but I think a lot of times when we're running stories about protests or whatever, we're careful if you're occupying a building and beating up janitors at Columbia University, we're not calling you protesters.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, no, we don't sanitize our language. We call things what they are, which is the role of alternative and conservative media, because
it should be the role
mainstream,
of media generally.
it should be, but it's not. So you have to have the alternative to present people with factual information. And one of the other things that I've been sort of tracking in relation to these Tesla attacks is when you had like one or two, you think, okay, is this just a handful of crazy people who really hate Elon Musk? But it's becoming clear that this is organized. They have a hashtag for it. There's actually a website, which I won't name because I don't want people to go to it, where they're not only listing addresses of Tesla dealerships and Doge employees, but now they're even including private Tesla owners. Yep. So just random Americans who own a Tesla. And if you drive around the DC area, you will see people, they've started putting bumper stickers on the back of their Tesla that say, I bought this before I knew Elon Musk is crazy. And that's a signal to their buddies. Hey, don't torch my car.
I think it was before the show, we were mentioning that Rudyard Lynch was wrong.
Yep.
He told us, he came on the show, what was it, November or something?
I want to say November, yeah.
November, and he said that he has a standing bet with somebody, $1,000, that by April, 1,000 people will be dead for political reasons. So far, I think the number may be in 20s or so, political deaths in the past 4 months. So we say he's wrong. He's completely wrong. Now, the terrifying thing is, with only about, 13 days until April, when he made his prediction, we are looking at extreme acts of terror at Tesla dealerships. And then I think about what Eric Prince told me when I asked him if he thought, based on all the things that he had seen, this is the guy he's the private military contractor guy, right?
Yes.
I said, after all the things he's seen, does he think the U.S. could go into one of these collapses, civil wars or otherwise? And he said the one thing that everybody in the business will tell you is that it happens overnight. One day everything's normal. The next day there's no internet, there's no electricity, there's no garbage service, the water's not running. And most people think there's going to be a slow buildup. But I'll add on top of that, with all due respect to Mary Morgan, we're big fans, but she is young. She's 24. She's 24, right? Anyway, yes. Host of Pop Culture Crisis, shout out. And she said she's in the nothing ever happens camp. And I was just like, I thought about that. When Donald Trump descended from that escalator, something happened. Mm-hmm. And for most of us, we're all older, you guys are older than me, it was like, holy crap, what? Like nothing happening is politician in suit argues with politician in suit. The joke that Futurama made was what Jim Johnson and John Jimson or whatever, clones of each other, were debating, but they agreed on everything. That's how people in the 2000s viewed politics. Nothing ever happened. And then Trump stepped up. Something happened. Trump was accused of being a Russian spy. Trump was impeached twice. There was scandal after scandal after scandal. The media wouldn't shut up. And Mary says nothing ever happens. I'm like, that's because Mary was 14 when Trump descended that escalator. For her entire adult life, she has been living in the heat, in the fray of this stuff happening.
So much stuff.
It's
Yeah.
relative.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at now, it is remarkable to me when I talk to someone and say, you really don't think a civil war is possible? No, it's not possible. And I'm like, after everything that's happened, it's like I'm still talking to people and it's like, did you see the bullet graze the head of the president? And they're like, I don't know. People live in the moment. And what happens is if things get too hot too quick, people freak out. But if things are just getting hotter very slowly, people adapt. It's boiling frogs, right?
Well, the thing, too, I've been thinking about as we have the release of the JFK files, and Trump has also promised Martin Luther King Jr. files, Bobby Kennedy assassination files. And I was thinking about how that was an assassination era. I was thinking about my mom. My parents lived through this period of time when the president got assassinated. You know, one of the nation's top civic leaders got assassinated. The brother of the
Wasn't it two of them?
president got assassinated. Yeah, it was MLK, RFK, and JFK. And they just all got assassinated. I mean, living
Malcolm
through
X.
that time. Yeah, Malcolm X got assassinated.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. How do I forget about Malcolm X? I just remember the zoot suits from that Malcolm X movie. Yep. But yeah, I mean, this was a lot of
political bombings
assassinations.
that we're talking
a
about.
lot of that, a lot of assassinations. And there was no, you could say there was no civil war, but there was certainly a massive uprising. There were massive social unrest, civil strife, for sure. I mean, you had people got shot at universities, shot to death at Kent State.
Crazy.
You had, you had civil rights activists getting murdered all through the South, white civil rights activists, black civil rights activists. You had lynchings. You had Emmett Till, which is a crazy.
Was that in the 60s?
Wasn't it? It was like all around that
before
period.
that.
Was that before? Was that the 50s or was that the 60s?
Emmett Till was 55.
55. So yeah, that was early. But during that period of time, you had lynching. Certainly,
I don't-
It was crazy. You had KKK burning crosses.
Right. I don't know where this all goes. I'm just saying that it is worse now than it was last year. It's worse
Is
now
it worse
than it
now
was.
than it was in 2020?
Yes. That when you had it
Why?
depends
Because
on.
that was contained.
Well, I would say it depends on how you frame things, right? The thing about 2020 is you have this quote unquote pandemic. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. What I mean to say is quote unquote pandemic lockdown, the systems of governance where they said we're going to mandate all these different policies. I believe there was a pandemic. I'm arguing from the government side. That led to people protesting en masse across the country and some of the worst riots we've seen in a long time. The reason why I say it's worse now is that riots are riots, and you lock people in their homes for several months, and their brains are going to boil, and you're going to get riots, and riots sometimes happen, and those riots were bad. What we're looking at is 2 assassination attempts on the front runner for the presidency who eventually won, a bullet that grazed his head, and now terroristic targeting of not just Tesla dealerships, but I think we're looking at almost 20 prominent personalities in media supporting the president have been targeted with swatting calls. In the summer of love, the government.
You also had the assassination of a healthcare executive.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
In the summer of love,
Two
you
of
had
them, right?
2 of them.
There was a
The
lower
attempted.
level one
Oh.
attempted
That was
Attempted, that's
attempted.
right.
like 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oregon.
So in
something like that.
2020, you had riots, and they were really bad. And then in Seattle and stuff, you got the autonomous zones, really crazy. Today, you are getting leftists directly targeting perceived political opponents. So riots in general are people running around screaming, smashing things. That's their own cities. I was talking to somebody, and I was debating civil war with them, and it was on the show. I can't remember what show it was probably last year. And they said, that's insane. I go outside, nobody's talking about civil war, right? Who do you think is going to fight a civil war? If I go outside, nobody cares. And I said, do you think people in 1862 in Atlanta walked out of their houses, looked at their neighbor and said, are you a Yank? I'll fight you. No, they were all Southerners. They walked outside and said, who's talking about civil war? The fight was on the front lines in Pennsylvania or in Maryland, in West Virginia. It wasn't in next door.
Well, or with
People don't understand that when we are talking about escalation of civil war, Whether it could happen, I don't know. I'm not saying it will. The difference between 5 years ago and today is the direct targeting of political opponents with extreme violence and attempted murder.
Well, and you also have for decades, well, maybe not decades, but you certainly have for years, the Democrat politicians calling for this very thing. You had Maxine Waters during the first Trump administration saying, call out Trump officials where you see them. Sarah Sanders was forced out of a Waffle House at one point. You had, what was it? Hakeem Jeffries was recently talking about, we're going to take this fight to the streets. Yep. You have a lot, like that's a standard rhetorical practice of Democrats, is that we're going to have street violence.
Also, everyone forgets about the attempted assassination of multiple Republican members of Congress with the Alexandria baseball shooting.
Right.
Yep.
In the Supreme Court, there was a guy who went to kill Brett Kavanaugh.
Right. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.